Hi guys, it's Katie with Begging for Balance. We're gonna do part 2 of everything about puppies. Denise will be coming on, and we did a live about puppies about, I guess it's 2 weeks ago tonight. So if you want to see part 1, you can check back. 2 weeks ago we did it, so you'll want to watch that part also. In that one, we talked a lot about young puppies. So today, let me get Denise on here, and we're going to add some more information. And if you have a question about a puppy, I guess you could comment that, and we'll answer your questions about puppies tonight too. How you doing, Denise? You're good?
I
Awesome.
barely made it.
Denise had some trouble cooking her dinner tonight. She burnt it, and then the skies opened up and rained down on her. But it was worth it, she said. So
Yeah, if you go check out my stories, like I burnt dinner. I made a couple mistakes. Then I had a backup, and then it rained, which typically happens when I am grilling outside. Because I don't burn dinners again. But it was great because it was great. I mean, even if I didn't have a backup, like shit.
turned out
I'm
good.
just glad I got to eat, because then I would have been like, I have to eat. I'm gonna be even later. I would have to like go get something, because I didn't have anything readily to whip up like that.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad it worked out.
Yeah.
You ready
Thank you.
to talk about puppies, part 2?
Yep. So we're talking about puppies part 2. I'm on Instagram as well too.
Awesome. So I'm not sure if we touched on this last week, but I also want to touch on it a little bit tonight. Is just that everyone should remember, if you have a puppy, that you're not training a puppy. You're actually training that animal to be an adult dog. So whatever you want the adult dog to behave like, is what you want to be kind of setting for your goal, like not constantly looking at the young puppy like a baby, even though it is, when it's very young, it is a baby, but you want it to, be trained up into a mature adult, well-behaved dog. So keep that in mind, that you're training a dog, ultimately. So, do you want to talk a little bit about socialization, like what that means if someone has a puppy? And I thought maybe we could break it down into 2, like early when they're real young, and then a little bit later too, maybe what that.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Yeah, it's a really good idea to break it up. So and that could be for people who get dogs at different stages. That could be helpful, in that way. So when we get puppies, whether it's like from a breeder or from wherever we want to get a puppy from, we start exposing it to the environment little by little. So what that means is, like, we'll take it places that it's allowed to go, and that doesn't mean, because what a lot of people do is they get their puppy and straight away they'll go to a pet store, take the dog with them, right? And then they shop for stuff. Um, that's okay, but the problem is you're taking it to the pet shop where there's a lot of other animals, and usually those pet shops have like clinics, so they're sick animals. So it's kind of like going to the hospital. If you can avoid being at the hospital or facilities like that for humans, and acquiring a hospital, there's a professional technical name for it, a hospital acquired disease or something like that. It's the same thing with a dog who doesn't have its defense system in, and if it got vaccinations at all, if the breeders believes in them or does a good job, whatnot. So exposing it to something like that could be a little dangerous. Like, say if you put it in the cart, or it's exposed to something really scary like parvo, something, things like that. Um, so exposing it, not going to the pet shop, would be other places where you can take it. maybe like a home improvement store, or just outside of your house in the driveway, or if you live in an apartment, like that corridor, or wherever people like go in and out and stuff and hear cars. And it's very simple. Like you don't have to go very far to get it done. So we believe in getting those dogs exposed to those types of sounds and traffic. And I like to do it frequently and in very short bouts. Enough. What's a short bout, or what's a short session, I guess? It's like however long their food lasts me. If I want to use their food, their puppy kibble, then I would take that portion of food with me, give it to them slowly. And if it lasts me 10 minutes, 15 minutes, see you, bye.
Yeah.
And then get them in the car for a car ride, give them the food in the car safely, of course. Bring somebody to help you if you want to do it like that. And just go around your neighborhood so you don't have to worry about like high traffic and driving and the puppy like, rolling around in there if you get into an accident and all this other stuff. Roll down the windows. You don't have to go very far to get it done. Because if you keep the dog locked up, everybody's worried about not crating it, right? But they don't take it anywhere. So if you keep the dog locked up and don't expose it to anything, by the time that it's a little bit older and you want to walk it or do stuff with it, it's all nervous and terrified because you didn't help it out. And like for example, like my breeder does a good job in exposing the puppies, but it's not enough. They need more. I could give you an example. One of my dogs, like the two of them, like hated swimming. The retrievers, like they hated the water, hated taking baths and all that. So I had to do the work and expose the one that hated the baths to water, teach her how to swim early on. If you scroll through the Instagram, you'll see like a video of her screaming and stuff and barking because she's like not sure of the water, and we forced her to do it. And then now she's like, we can keep her out. She's banging her head in the water because she's flying across to get a frisbee.
She needs a bigger pool, a dock.
Yeah, I need a house, I need a different house, clearly, one with a thing, so I don't get wet. Basic necessities. Not complaining at all. We make it work. So again, so like make what you have work for you. So you figure out creative ways. If field trips include taking your puppy to other people's wherever it's not
you
like
up for a second there, Denise.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. You just froze for just a second.
Wherever there's not a ton of dog traffic, that's where you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where you want to go. And even then, like, you know what I did when I've had little puppies here for like puppy raising stuff because they've had issues and they come and stay for a couple of weeks. I'll go to the auto parts store, and you don't have to go inside if you don't want to. Go to the auto parts store and hang out there. There's like tons of traffic, or even like here we have 7-Eleven gas station. Just hang out there and sit somewhere. Bring a little foldable chair and sit there. Maybe people would want to pet it or something like that. Just have it give them kibble. I'm like, okay, you can pet it, but you got to give it a little treat or something, a little kibble, and that's it. And then you're done. Shoop, scoop them up once, twice a week. You'll do well. Essentially, that's the socialization for a really young little puppy. And then you'll have issues if the young puppy is not socialized in the litter, because what happens is like the bite stuff, they teach each other like how hard to bite, how not to bite, and all this other stuff. Like now it's your turn to kind of help it out, is if it didn't learn it in the litter. Maybe it was a single puppy, or maybe the mom didn't do a good job. Maybe they have like aggressive genes or something like that, genetics, and the mom just like that stuff happens. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the breeder. So the raising stuff when they're really small, and then when it goes to your house, that combination sometimes really creates just a psycho dog that you can't control.
Yeah. Those first few weeks that people, like if you get a puppy at 8 weeks, that first several weeks that you have the puppy home, that is very critical. And I think we touched on that very briefly last week or 2 weeks ago when we did the live. There's sort of a critical socialization period for puppies. And it's up until I've read different things, but about 13 weeks or so. Um, and that just means that during that time, the experiences they have are permanent, whether they're good or bad. Like they are very critical to the dog. So if they have a bad experience during that time, it will most likely stay with them for their life. So if they have experiences where they get to just see something and it's kind of neutral, or they have a little bit of stress about it, but then they are able to overcome it, they remember those things throughout their life. So that's why Denise is saying, like, just taking your puppy to a store, those kind of places. And the thing with the vaccinations, the main thing with really young puppies is parvo that you're worried about. And that lives like sort of in the ground. It comes from the feces of dogs and stuff. So places like dog parks, not a good idea. Places with like mass numbers of dogs, like she said at the hi G, like at pet stores, places like that may not be the best place to take those puppies. But it's also really important to get them exposed to all those experiences. So some vets will tell you, like, don't take your puppy anywhere until it's fully vaccinated. But the behavioral consequences on the dog for life can be more detrimental than the disease. Like, yes, that disease can kill puppies, but if you take them out and socialize them safely in kind of less risky areas, you're gonna help your dog behaviorally in the long run. So
Yeah, I mean, going inside the vet, they've got sick stuff too, and not everybody like takes care of,
yeah,
cleaning real well and all that. And some cleaning doesn't take care of a lot of disease, depending on, what you clean
yeah,
with. So when you go in there and your puppy's like on the floor, and then you take that time to let it socialize with other dogs, that's not the place. It's equal
right,
or worse than the dog park. There's a lot of
yeah,
stress there.
yeah,
And believe it or not, even though dogs and people and puppies, all the above, are social, the dog park's not the place to go, because people go over there with the mentality of, I've
yeah,
got a dog who can't socialize, he's not friendly with people, or is missing the social part with the dogs.
yeah,
And then they forget that there's people there too, and it becomes a problem if you can't read when the dog like wants to leave, or you
yeah,
don't know, or if you mistake anxiety for excitement,
yeah,
and then you don't understand that your dog has had enough, and you leave it there, and there's different you know layers of that cake stress that you've piled on. It's like a whipped cream.
yeah,
And you start creating some really bad things, and losing trust, and that's really important because you brought the dog there.
yeah,
So every time that it goes there has a bad experience, and you can mistake it so easily, especially when you open that door. They're excited to go in, and they're panting, and they look like they're smiling, and they're like, oh, they're happy to be here, and they're really not. If you don't know how to look at that, if you don't really know your dog, it definitely
yeah,
shouldn't. I mean, it's dangerous either way,
yeah,
but shouldn't be going to those
yeah.
places for socialization.
Yeah, definitely not, especially when they're really young puppies. Like if you have a really young puppy and you want to expose it to other dogs socially, then the best idea is either to find a dog that you know is good with puppies historically, is not going to like attack puppies, because you do not want that to happen. Like I said, those experiences are permanent, so you don't want like a bad experience. Setting a play date up with someone that that has a dog that's good with puppies, even if it's one or two dogs, during those several first early weeks, um, that's like your best bet. And if you don't know anyone that has a dog like that, you could try to contact a trainer, someone else that has, puppy. It's not quite as good like getting a couple of puppies together, because the puppies aren't going to, I don't want to say discipline each other necessarily. Like an older dog who's good with puppies, if the puppy is out of control or like really too rambunctious, jumps on them, bites them in certain ways, a good older dog will show them in dog language, knock it off, puppy. And that's what you want. Like you ultimately want them to be able to read dog body language. So, but it might only be one or two little interactions. Doesn't have to be a lot. It's not like you don't want a young puppy to necessarily meet every dog that it sees, because what's going to happen is you're going to meet some dogs that are not going to be good with a puppy, and then it's going to be a bad experience. So it's more important to get that one good experience than 50 questionable experiences.
Yeah.
How about later socialization? So that's kind of like you touched on, um, not going to dog parks. But then we could also talk about like existence, kind of the older they get, hopefully you're doing some training with your dog. So around 6 months or so, or even a little before that, you want to start implementing some training and then practicing that training out in public, and then having the dog sort of exist around those things. So existing around, dogs walking by, maybe other dogs on a leash that are walking by, kind of ignore them, pay attention to me, pay attention to the training. And the same with people. Like at that age, we don't necessarily want them saying hello to everyone they meet, because what happens if we do that is the dog, if they like people, then they assume that every person they see means I can break command and go over and get loved on. And so you're going to fight that, obedience wise. It's going to be like a constant struggle. So you want your dog to listen to the commands and to be focused on you rather than focused on all the people around them. And if your dog doesn't necessarily feel comfortable with, all kinds of people coming up to it, if you allow them to, you can really have your dog lose trust in you. So that's another reason why, especially at that age, like older puppies, we don't necessarily want everyone messing with them.
Yeah.
And
a couple more things to add to that. You guys can go on walks with some friends, a play group that you set up with people who have like really decent dogs for those older ones. Look at maybe some meetup groups in your area, and you can go vet those people and vet those dogs. A lot of different housing developments or apartment complexes have like their own little dog parks, and people can't get in there, and it's exclusive. So if you know a couple people in there, those are good ways to if you know your dog's social and doesn't have issues, those tend to be a little bit more intimate. And again, you end up knowing those people in the end. And pack walks are great. So if people host those and they're willing to invite you, that's something to look into as well. But it's not really a necessary thing, like depending on like the level of issues that your dog has. It's not necessary for you to fix the socialization. If that's what's on your mind and that's your goal, you could work up to those goals depending on what it is that your dog has, how much of it, and how much work you put into it. Because I've seen people go from like, this dog's never gonna meet other ones, it's never gonna be around anyone, never, ever, ever, ever. And 2-3 years plus down the line, they're very much capable of doing that stuff, but it's very owner dependent. A lot of people, come to us and like I'll get questions like, "Can you fix this?" I'm like, "Well, it's a long answer because I can fix it with me. Certain things they'll look fixed, and then when you get the dog with the owner, with those past patterns and lifestyle and associations, what we call relationship, the dogs are not as good as they were for that trainers, just different relationship, different leadership and all that. So all that stuff matters for when you are making decisions like this, because People continue to make these decisions without analyzing situations, and children are getting bit. People are getting bit. And obviously the dog gets put down. So heavens forbid you have a bully breed and you're at fault for
Yeah.
everything. So this kind of stuff is like, this is the reason that we do these. And we drill like the same thing over and over again, like a broken record. But it's not common knowledge. So
Yeah.
if you guys put some attention and look at the type of content that is out there online, and you can really learn some stuff and prevent a whole plethora of behaviors that
Mm.
are unwanted and that you have to like work so hard and invest money to fix.
Speaking of that, that was the next thing on the list. Is just some common problems that some common like behavior problems that people have with puppies. So as they're growing, a lot of times this is what people will call with. The puppy is chewing everything, like on your furniture and your clothing, and like eating socks and underwear. Um, Mouthing, like mouthing people's hands, nipping, jumping and nipping, stealing items. Like if they pick up something and then you're like, give me that. And you go and they run away from you, um, peeing in the house, counter surfing, all these things. So, you just touched on preventing these things. So with puppies, that's what we're basically given, like a clean slate with a puppy. So they will do what you allow them to do. So the more freedom we give them, free roaming, not supervising, um, the more trouble they're going to start to get into. And then you're going to build up a lot of those nuisance kind of behaviors in the dog. So, um, do you want to talk about maybe some things that people could do to, I mean, that's part of it, but what else can they do to, prevent those types of behaviors?
Learn to recognize when like that puppy's tired. A lot of times they start like really nipping at you and getting all crazy when they're exhausted and they need some downtime. Biggest mistake I see when I get called, to do my puppy private lessons is that nobody's applying the crate time. Nobody's applying that decompression time. Nobody's giving that puppy that, and they require a lot of sleep. More than 90% of the day they're sleeping, and they need that. They're growing and they're learning, and that's the time that they need to process on everything that went on that day. So definitely going to sleep is something that they need, and you need to be putting them away. So if you feel like it's like a toy, like you put it away and you bring it out when for whenever it's time for something, then you're probably doing it right and you're on a schedule. If you're doing stuff like that, you're also going to help out the potty training because you're doing crate training, putting the dog away. All that stuff is rolled into one. So you're teaching that dog that it has some place to go. And I get messages all the time like, how is like when I posted a story on Arrow playing in the thunder outside in the yard. People are like, how did you get that? Like, how did you do that? And in a simple answer is structure, but the kennel, right? The kennel, like you go there, nothing happens to you there. They frequently go there even during the day, and as they're puppies, they're in there a lot, but they're also out a lot too. It's not like they're in there around the clock. They're also out a ton, and it's in and out, in and out, in and out. So when you're not watching the dog, when you don't have eyeballs on the puppy's away or the dog's away, especially in those growing phases, which to me, in my opinion, are from like very little puppy all the way up to like 3 years old. Lots of structure. I mean, they should have it either way, but lots of structure. And when I'm not here, when I can't eyeball you, when I don't have anything for you to do per se, then you're in your crate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how like I have a solid dog and I don't feel bad about it. My dogs are very active, very much included, And that's how it should be. So you don't feel like that, because the humans make those decisions based on their own feeling. And they're not, since they don't know dogs really well, they don't know what their dog particularly needs. Tons of dogs are uncrated and they do fine, but that doesn't mean that yours is like that. We want to prevent behaviors, and if it's already having issues, you're going to need it. You're going to need it, or you're going to struggle. And again, we're all about like teaching you how to prevent it, so you don't need like somebody like us. That's why dogs get anxiety. That's why, I mean, some are more prone to it than others, just like any other behavior, aggression, all that stuff. But this is why we like drill this stuff in, because it works. If it didn't work, then so yeah, we go down the rabbit hole real quick. But so learning how to recognize that, right? The nipping, that's a real common one. And structure, realizing like, okay, it's time to put you away. Making sure that you are in tune with that. And then a schedule. That's the basics, pretty much. There are other behaviors, but it covers that, like potty training. If they're potting everywhere and missing, if you're on a schedule, food and crating and stuff like that, then you're gonna get that. And it doesn't happen in a week. People think that puppies are trained in a week or two. No, this is an ongoing situation
also,
here.
the older they get, we can add a couple of things in, like place command. That's a way to, it's sort of like you're still able to supervise them, but it's not as, they're not as likely to get into trouble if you kind of give them something to do. This is what I need you to do. And that, you still need to be keeping an eye on them. Like, you don't take a 6-month-old puppy and put it on place in your bedroom and go downstairs and wash dishes. Like, most likely a young dog like that is going to get up and eat your bedding, or, it's just not going to, that's not going to work. But if you're like making dinner, you could put a puppy that age, like on place in the kitchen, and they can learn to kind of watch what's going on around, but know that that's where they need to stay on place. And also, like, just having a simple leash, like having a leash on the dog is really important for preventing and helping with some of those behaviors too. Like the dogs that steal an item and then take off, like if you have a leash on the puppy, you have a much easier way of, taking the leash and guiding the dog, like, not letting them get into that kind of chase me game, because that's not, not really a good thing. And the same thing with, I'm just thinking, I don't have this on the list, but I was thinking of like another problem that people have is they let their dog out in the backyard off leash, and then it stops listening sometime, like when it's a little older, 4 months, 5 months, that little puppy that would come to you every single time, in the beginning, all of a sudden is like, I think I want to go that way instead of going inside with you. So that's where, if you have like a long line on the dog and the dog is not listening, you just take the long line and then you recall them again and they'll come right with you, like a real young dog like that. Just having that tool on, even if they're just dragging it around, you have a way to get them, and you don't lose the value of your recall, because that's what happens. People will say, Fluffy, come, and he doesn't, and then they say it again and like 4 or 5 times, and then they're like, I just don't know what to do because I can't get the dog. They try to go out and chase the dog, if you don't have a leash on the dog, they can make it hard for you to catch them. But if you have a long line dragging, then it's much easier. You've got, 20 foot or more of leash to be able to get them. So just those little things, a couple of little things can prevent so much. The crate, a leash, place command. Obviously, an 8-week-old puppy is not practicing duration place command while you make dinner. It's just not. You can teach them to go on it, and it's fun, like, oh, get up there, if you want to do that with your dog. But the older they get, they can start learning that stuff, and it can help you to kind of manage the dog. So trying to think what else. I just had, supervising, and that's basically, you need to, when you supervise your dog, you are paying attention to the dog. That doesn't mean you're making dinner and the dog's just running around the house and it's in there with the kids and you don't know what's happening. Like, that's not really focused supervision. So that is super, super important with these puppies, is focused supervision. And if you can't devote the time to them right then it's better for them to put them in the crate or have them on a leash that you can clip to your belt, like something, so that the dog can be either right with you or in the crate. And, that prevents all the housebreaking issues. Like Denise said, getting into all those things, eating your trash. Yeah. It prevents so much. So
the kids are teaching it bad behaviors, and people don't realize it. Like with the nipping, and they're like, ow, and they just, play with it and play with it, and the puppy's like, oh, this is fun, you like this. They don't know ouch or screaming or crying. If anything, that'll frighten them and easily, like, raise a nervous puppy. That's really normal. Have children,
or they pull their hands up. Kids will pull their hands up like this, ow, ow, like, and that just signals the puppy to play more. Like, that's what dogs would do to, like play bowing and backing away. It's a signal, like, play with me more. And so if your kids are doing that, then they're teaching the dog, jump on me more, keep this game up and get rougher. And so.
Yep. Easily taught bad behaviors by kids. So the adult needs to be supervising that. Oh, but I got this puppy for my kid. The kid's not going to take care of it, y'all. It barely knows how to take care of itself. So it just, we're not laughing at it. It's just the way I got to laugh at myself the way I said it. But what I'm saying is, not laughing at people don't know. Jeez, but it's so easy to do and easily missed. So that's what the deal is with that.
Yeah, definitely. Kind of directing kids too. Like, I do like kids helping with the training, if it's a young dog, they can help with stuff, but you have to give them guidance and, have them learn how to walk the dog on a leash and learn how to make the puppy wait and sit before it's given a treat, or, just little things like that kids can do and help out, teach the dog to go into the kennel, and the kid can, like, put the, close the gate and close the latch with you helping them, with you showing what to do and things like that. They can be included, but it shouldn't just be like a free for all, because that's what happens is when people call or they need our help and stuff, it's gone a long time as a free for all, and things have gotten really, really bad. And then it's like, now we have to stop all those behaviors and then teach the dog something different. So a lot can be prevented with just those few little things. Do you want to talk about how, like, the only other thing I had on the list is how some dogs, when they're like 12 weeks or so, 12, 14 weeks, some puppies need prong collar. So not every dog needs that, obviously, but there are some puppies that we would use like prong on a puppy that age to kind of give them guidance and stuff like that. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, so that's all. I was just going to say, like, some dogs, puppies can do great with a slip lead, and they're not super pushy or like try to test you, but or like the pulling, let's say just that, the pulling. Some puppies are much more larger breeds, certain personalities of dogs can do better with a prong, at that age. So it's the same, um, like we do with all dogs. You size and fit the prong appropriately. And then it's really tiny. Like you can get either micro prongs or the little 2.25. And it's just leash guidance and teaching them pressure and release with it. We're not putting it on and like majorly correcting this young puppy because they don't need that. They might, you can use it for some corrections. So if, like, let's say the puppy that age is really starting to do a lot of jumping, or I'm trying to think of what else you can maybe, some dogs, I'm trying to think, like Moose was very smart. He wanted to do a lot of training. Like he really was very active, ready to work, things like that. But, it also helps to be able to say no to them. And the prong is a really easy way to be able to say no effectively. So if it's barking, like maybe they start barking when you're out on walks, barking at another dog they see or something, sometimes just a little prong correction, like, nope, come on, let's go, walk this way, is enough. And it can be beneficial for them. Like I said, it's not every dog that needs that, but it can help. So
Yeah, especially if the owner doesn't match. And most owners don't have like a ton of handling skills. So if it's a real like adamant little puppy you'll recognize it. It's like nothing you've ever had, and it's totally like berserk crazy and nothing works, and it's just you'll know it. And you can be very gentle with it. That's what's so good about it. You can be very, very gentle with it. I've met plenty of puppies who at 13 weeks could sure as heck, use some corrections for behaviors, not necessarily the prong, but some corrections, and an effective way to deliver that would be a prong collar. And behaviors like you mentioned them already. Pushy stuff is just the demeanor, it's just the attitude, it's the how that dog's calibrated.
yeah.
You just can tell what they need. And even though like 98% of dogs get these two very common tools, it doesn't mean that that's like the only thing we use. But it's super easy to use. Anybody can use it, and they're extremely effective versus like other things. Do we use other tools? Yeah, I got tools in my house for different dogs and those special needs cases.
Right.
That need a gentle leader or need something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the reason that we use them, it's effective, and we are showing owners how to maintain this stuff. So if I use a tool that's more difficult, even though it's prettier, whatever, which I'm not going to do. No, like, I use per dog basis, and I dictate that. So it's like going to a doctor. You don't diagnose yourself or anything like that. The doctor diagnoses it, and you can agree or not with the treatment plan and seek another opinion. That's in a sense the same thing. But back to the tool thing, it's just a matter of like you recognizing what you have, and when you really start paying attention, or even because people compare to like other dogs, this dog's different, and I've had a lot of dogs, and something's different. Listen to that, because usually that's telling you something if you really pay attention.
Yeah.
So dogs that we like typically see that with are like some bully breeds, some huskies, the Maligators, the Malinois German Shepherds, and they're not like, even though they're super duper sweet, they've got that something that they were born like. What? Tell me.
Yeah.
Tell me what to do. Like they need a leadership, and they know that you're not it. When they notice that, they take advantage of it, and then you've lost control very early on, because the dog, you're living with it, and it's reading you. So you're not reading it, you're missing how to read it. It's just like, oh, this cute fluffy thing that came into my house, it's family, I'm gonna love and affectionate it away. And meanwhile, this other stuff is happening that you don't even realize is about to blow up in your face and get worse. So that's what we're trying not to let you go towards.
Yeah.
That's That's the whole point. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and even like by, 4 months, 5 months, you can be obedience training the dog, like for, let's say, like place command. So you can teach the dog with food and, praise, rewards based like that. But then there will come a time when they just want to get off. Just like we talked about in the yard, you recall them. They might love coming for food up until that age. And then at some time, they're going to say, you know what? I like that you give me food to go on place, but it doesn't keep me there. And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to stay there. So I'm going to get off. And then it's nice to be able to use a prong to correct for stepping off place. So a little correction, back on place. That is where you're going to be able to, leverage that, the little corrections, plus all the positive stuff that you taught the dog, going on there and everything. Um, it's just going to kind of round out the training and make it much more effective. So
Your hair looks so pretty.
it does.
Yeah.
It's been like because of the humidity some of the days. I feel like
You have
frizz.
humidity.
Yeah. Yep. It gets bad. Some days it's pretty bad.
So we hit the end already? That's cool.
I think so. That's all I've got. Unless you have anything else you can think of to
No, we can just
add on there. I think that's good. I think that's pretty complete. We covered young puppies, older puppies.
Yeah.
And then also not like, this is the other thing. It's very hard as a, you and I both raised puppies last year, and it's very easy to be like, they're still puppies, they're still babies. And they technically, I think, are puppies until they're like 2 years old, and then they're full grown adults. So like Moose is not 2 yet, but I do not consider him a puppy. Like he is a grown dog.
I was a midget. She's a puppy.
And it's nice to like think of him as the baby of the family or whatever, but the bottom line is like he should not be getting away with baby behaviors and things like that at this point. It's important to remember that they're not, I'm not saying how many months old he is anymore either. If you're like, he's 22 months old, it's it's time, it's once they're like a year, 18 months, like, okay, they're a year old, that's it. And by the time they're 2, they're full grown adult dogs. So keep that in mind, and expect more from them. Expect them to be, well behaved by that time. So
yeah, I mean, if you expect more, you've got to be that leader that's expecting that back. Yep. Your dog wants a leader, so, and a leader has so many components to that. It's like, don't do this, don't do that, and how to communicate it in a clear fashion. If you figure that out and you watch content or you get your dog trained, like, then the good chances are you're going to be set with that dog.
Yep.
So, yeah. Best of luck with those puppies, you guys. We'll be doing this a little after Christmas or before Christmas.
Right. Yeah. Join us
before
Christmas
Christmas
when we do the next round of puppy training. Yeah.
I don't know. I might start. I mean, that season's crazy, but that's when people have off, like for summer break and Christmas. But then nobody plans on what to do when they go back to work and school. That's the thing. It's like, oh, this dog is like now peeing everywhere. So I don't know. So yeah.
Well, it's been good. I think this was really fun doing these 2 parts. It was really good. We got to be pretty thorough. So that was good.
Yeah, that was really good. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you.
Catch you on the next one.
Okay. Bye-bye.